Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2026 State Bar of Texas President-Elect Candidate Forum. I'm Steve Benesh, the immediate past president of the State Bar.
And I'm Paul Stafford, the immediate past chair of the State Bar of Texas Board of Directors. Steve and I serve as co-chairs of the Bar's Nomination and Elections Subcommittee, and in that role, we'll be moderating today's forum.
We are joined today by our two candidates. To my left, Sarah Clower Keathley, and to Paul's right, Ray Thomas. Both have been out tirelessly campaigning to become your next president-elect of the State Bar of Texas. This forum is an opportunity for all Texas lawyers to meet them.
We'll be asking the candidates questions related to the practice of law and the governance of the State Bar. We encourage those of you watching to submit questions in writing using the Zoom Q&A feature, and we'll get to your questions as time allows.
This forum is accredited for 1 hour of MCLE ethics credit. The State Bar will be reporting attendance for all viewers. If you'd like to self-report with the MCLE department, you can report your attendance using the course number that will be emailed to you after this forum concludes.
We'll start with introductions. Sarah and Ray, would you each take about a minute to introduce yourselves? And let's start with Sarah.
Well, my name is Sarah Clower Keathley, and I am very excited to be a candidate for President-elect of the State Bar of Texas. I am a third-generation Texas attorney. I practice law with my husband Steve in Corsicana. We have a small town general practice where we handle all types of matters. And most important to me is we are raising the fourth generation of Texas attorneys. My son Luke is a second-year law student at St. Mary's, and my daughter Kate is a first-year law student at Mitchell-Hamlin.
Ray?
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon. My name is Ray Thomas. I'm a Texas lawyer, graduated from the University of Texas in Austin in 1988 out of law school, and went to practice in McAllen, South Texas, where I've been board certified in civil trial law since 1995. I'm married to Sandra, and we have 2 children and 3 beautiful grandchildren, and I'm a first to rise. I'm the first lawyer and the only lawyer in our family, and I'm very excited to be one of your candidates for president-elect.
Thank you, Ray and Sarah.
Thank you both. Our members have already submitted a lot of great questions, and we want to get through as many of those questions as possible. So we ask that our candidates limit their answers to 2 minutes. And since we began with Sarah, we'll go ahead and begin with Ray. And Paul, if you'd like to provide the first question.
Certainly. Ray, how has your experience as a practicing lawyer prepared you to lead the State Bar of Texas? Also, how will you meet the needs of the diverse groups of the Texas Bar?
Well, Paul, I've been practicing now I'm starting my 38th year, and I've worked in both a law firm as well as a sole practitioner. And so, and in the law firm, I was one of the administrators. And so, I mean, running a law firm and running a solo practice involves leadership, it involves administration, it involves listening, it involves working with other people. And so having practiced law and then also as a civil trial lawyer, doing a lot of commercial litigation, I've had opportunities to represent a number of businesses in many different types of capacities and types of lawsuits, and also having served this profession in so many different offices, leadership positions, I feel well prepared to lead the State Bar.
Sarah?
So I began my career as an attorney in 1994, and I've had the opportunity to work in a few different, types of practice before I began my practice with my husband, Steve. So I started out in government working for the General Services Commission, then went to Dallas and worked for a family law practitioner. And then I went to Corsicana, and that's where I worked with Carrie Donica, who's a dear friend, and became one of my very first mentors and taught me the true meaning of a general practice, where we work with all types of people and handle all types of professions. Since Steve and I started our business back in 1999, I have become a small business owner. I've learned how to manage a staff. I've learned how to run a business. And that experience in practicing law in all different types of areas has prepared me to understand what it's like to be a lawyer in the state of Texas and to practice in all types of areas. We've worked in government work. We've represented all types of entities in our community. Steve served as our elected district attorney. He's a defense attorney now. I practice criminal defense work. So we get it. We understand where the Texas lawyers are and what they need today. What I can say is representing a diverse type of practitioners is very, very important to me. My children are entering this profession, and our Texas lawyers represent I believe there's 40% of our Texas lawyers are women now, and that's very, very exciting to me. Also important is the opportunity when I attend these local bar associations, go across the state. Lawyers are all types of people. We have all types of professions, and our voices are all being heard at the state bar. We're doing a great job in making sure that everyone has a seat at the table. And when I'm elected president-elect, I will continue that and bring it forward and make sure those pipelines to opportunity and representation are there for everybody, all practice areas and all lawyers.
Thank you both.
Our next question, and we'll begin with Sarah on this question. How do you propose the state bar should serve its largest demographic, solo and small firm lawyers?
Well, considering that is me that we are serving, I speak from the heart when I say that to be a Texas attorney requires the same thing whether you're board certified or you're a general practitioner. You need access to practical resources. You need access to quality continuing legal education. And by honing in and enhancing our current GP Solo section, I think that's a beautiful place to start. I have met with the current chair, and he is redeveloping the GP Solo section. That has the potential under his leadership and all of us, the GP Solos out there, to make sure that those of us who are not specialized in a particular area can come together, that we can practice law together, but we have the same resources that everybody else has. Now, as a GP Solo, we have the benefit of joining all the sections, and the section work that's being done is so incredibly helpful. When I served on the Family Law Council, we were able to provide great quarterly resources, our monthly newsletters, and then also as a member of the litigation section, the criminal justice section, and all of the sections. There's so many wonderful resources. But our GP Solo lawyers need to understand that our bar is there for you. We have tremendous resources, and as a GP Solo lawyer, I will stand as your voice and make sure that you're continuously supported and everything that you're doing is being magnified and enhanced by our state bar.
Thank you, Sarah. Ray?
Yeah, and thank you. So I'm very partial to rural lawyers. I was raised in Presidio, Texas, one of the most remote parts of Texas. And during this campaign, I've had an opportunity to go all over Texas, including the remote areas like Presidio and Marfa. And I have, in my entire career, have been also, like Sarah, either a small firm or a solo practitioner. I was with a small firm from 1988 until I went on my own and became a sole practitioner in 2017. And during all of that time, I have seen how things have improved, because it used to be so many of the state bar resources were dedicated to the big cities. We used to have to travel to the big cities in order to get quality CLE. And that has changed as technology has improved. It's enabled the bar and is enabling the bar to have better outreach to every area of the state so that we can reach this largest segment of our lawyer population, which are the small and rural and small firm and solo practitioners. That needs to continue, and as technology continues to advance, I think resources can be evenly spread across the state. But the best thing that we need to do is that we need to be good at listening. Instead of dictating what is needed, we need to talk to the solo practitioners and to the small firm folks like me and like Sarah, and find out what their current needs are to make sure that we're always a step ahead.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks. And Ray, this question is for you, and then we'll go to Sarah. What can the State Bar do to make sure that AI is used as a tool for attorneys and not a replacement? Also, talk about what we can do to stop the inappropriate use of AI.
So, of course, AI is both an exciting and a worrisome technology that is dramatically impacting our practices very quickly. I'm one of the users of AI. I've not tried to do a legal brief with AI, but I have used it for help putting together, crafting correspondence, and coming up with ideas for voir dire questions. In fact, just yesterday, I picked a jury in a jury trial that's ongoing today. My partner's covering that. Not my former partner's covering the jury trial, but I used it to help me formulate some voir dire questions, and it was very helpful. So what the State Bar's role is, and it plays a vital role in helping us understand both what the potential is to enhance our practice, to make our practice more efficient, to deliver legal services to those to low-income Texans. But at the same time, the State Bar has to help us understand what the limitations are, and what those ethical limitations are, and help the judiciary as well. And there are things that I think are very important. Our Emerging Technologies Committee, which the State Bar has created, which is we've got incredible leaders like Judge Xavier Rodriguez and Peter Vogel, very experienced, knowledgeable, bright folks who are helping us understand how to harness this incredible power. And we need to know the potential, we need to know the limits, and it will never substitute for our independence, for our judgment, for our integrity. That is something technology cannot replace.
Thank you, Ray. Sarah?
So the introduction of AI into our practices was very scary to me in the beginning, but I have found it to be a tool and a resource that has enhanced the practice of law. But one of the things that I have seen over and over is that it's not going to be able to replace us. The human connection is what as the basis of our profession, the integrity that we bring to the table, the interaction that we have with our clients. So I am confident that AI is a tool in our toolkit. It is continuing to evolve. It's changing the way we research, speeding up the way that you can write to give you rough drafts. We talked about using it in trial, using it in real time. AI it's here. It sits with us, but I am not worried that it will replace us. Now, using AI is just like having any employee that you work with. When your name goes on a document, when a work product leaves your office and is published, then that is where the rubber meets the road. And we have strong ethical guidelines about what is required of us as lawyers. And going back to our integrity, our word, our reputation, our professionalism, all that doesn't change just because we've sped up. We have a new gadget, we have a new product that is there to help us be better lawyers. And I think continuing to hold lawyers accountable to our ethical standards is all that we need to do. It is a problem. I've spoken with judges. I've heard, especially recently, from an appellate judge, and the pro se litigants are using this technology without understanding the results that it's producing, which is causing a problem. But as far as lawyers go, the AI revolution is here. The emerging technologies it's been unleashed, and as an organization, we are taking such great strides with our AI toolkit. And for those of us who are still intimidated, the Ask a Human program that we have to understand how to engage with that has been very, very helpful. But I think doubling down to what makes us Texas lawyers, and that is our reputations, our ethics, and our ability to practice law safely and effectively for our clients, that's the constraint that's not going to change no matter what new technology comes down the pipeline.
Thank you.
Next question. As we all know, lawyers are subject to the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct. One member has asked this question, and I quote, "Can we enforce the code of ethics or professional conduct more aggressively?" And so candidates, I ask you this question. What can the State Bar do to enhance ethics and professionalism among Texas lawyers. And Sarah, I think it's your turn.
So ethics and professionalism is a tenet of my law practice. It is something that my dad instilled in me, and Steve and I strive to be good stewards of the Texas rules of ethics and be professional and civilly engaged and competent lawyers every day. What the state bar can do is to continue to uphold the standards across the board equally to all lawyers. We have a disciplinary system. We regulate ourselves, and that is something that is very, very important, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that. I think that what we need to do is make sure that the lawyers that we are appointing and the public members that we are appointing understand and are consistently applying the ethical rules, the disciplinary rules that they are looking at through the grievance process. I think continuing to educate our lawyers, all of us, on the rules of ethics, reminded, and one of the things that I think is so practical that we use in our continuing legal education courses now is when you can be a speaker and you can roll in ethics into the topic that you're speaking about and show real time how here's the topic you're speaking on, and here's the ethical component, and here's things that you can do to be a better lawyer. I think that's how we robustly do that, enforce that.
Thank you, Sarah. Ray?
Sure. Ethics and professionalism are really the key to instilling the public confidence in the legal system. And if us as lawyers, if we can't take care of ourselves, if we can't self-police and self-discipline, then we're going to lose that right, and someone else is going to be doing that for us. In general, I think we do a pretty good job of that. Of course, the state bar is separate and apart from the Commission for Lawyer Discipline, which has the responsibility for lawyer discipline, both to protect the public as well as to ensure that any complaint that is made, the attorney is treated fairly and has her or his due process. And so the system was intentionally set up that way so that the state bar, it's not the fox guarding the hen house. So that independence needs to be maintained, and how aggressive that enforcement is, how uniform that enforcement is more a function of the Commission for Lawyer Discipline than it is for the state bar. But what the state bar leadership can be doing is making sure that professional excellence and adherence to ethical standards remains high. And I think that's something that we can all as leaders be doing through peer pressure, through recognition. Our judges, especially our trial judges, can be aggressively pushing back against those lawyers who are abusive. And you know, part of this, I hope we get to attorney wellness at some point, but I believe that one of the reasons why attorneys are suffering so much burnout and dissatisfaction is because it's what I call lawyers hating on lawyers. And we've got to elevate that level of professionalism. And I think we can go into the law schools and do a better job encouraging the law schools to focus on professionalism and to focus on ethics and to help instill in every law student and young lawyer and unfortunately some of us older lawyers the need to elevate our professionalism.
Thank you both.
We just got a question submitted by one of our viewers. Ray, we'll start with you. How will you advocate for in-house attorneys licensed and working in Texas?
So in-house lawyers who are, and by the way, you know, so I've been doing this for 37 going on 38 years, and I've often thought about what it would be like to just have a single client instead of 120 clients. So I've actually talked to some in-house attorneys, and one of them is Jason Fulton, who's in-house at Buc-ee's, and I've also talked to some others who they're very happy where they are, there already are CLE programs that are directed to in-house attorneys. There already are programs that are directed and benefits that are directed to in-house attorneys. I think we can do a better job of that. And the way we do that is by outreach and by sitting down at the table with the in-house counsel and asking them what it is the State Bar can better do for them. But as a member of our profession, they are all attorneys, whether they're in-state or out-state, in-house or outside counsel. There are so many great benefits that the State Bar is already providing, and we need to do a good job communicating the availability of those benefits that help every Texas lawyer.
Thanks, Ray, and I'll repeat the question for you, Sarah. How will you advocate for in-house attorneys licensed and working in Texas?
So the in-house attorneys that are licensed and working in Texas are part of our bar association, just like the family law attorneys, just like our criminal defense attorneys. And I think one of the best things that we can do as an organization is understand that although they might have a different title and their desk might look different than some of ours, that they can be included and be part of the engagement of our State Bar membership. The benefits, the practice areas, the things that in-house attorneys are seeing are very niche and very specialized, I can imagine, but I can also know that the attorneys that are in-house counsel have the same types of struggles and frustrations that most attorneys have as well. And I think having that opportunity where we can cross-pollinate with our different sections and our different areas to bring lawyers together, I think would not only help the practice that those of us are doing, but it'll also help engagement. I think it's very, very important too to realize that the attorneys that are either coming out of law school, just starting their career, or perhaps want to do some changes to their practice area would benefit greatly from hearing and learning about the experience of in-house counsel. So it's a wonderful untapped resource to not only talk about what their needs are. So if there's something that the bar could be doing for them, then that's all we need to know is to hear about that. I know the continuing legal education programs that are being offered are wonderful, but wouldn't that be neat if a program or a topic area could then blend in with some of the other practice sections? And I'm not sure exactly how that would look, but I can imagine with some collective planning committee on a CLE topic, we could address that. But I'm happy and I'm proud of our State Bar having so many different areas to practice law, and that's the main reason that I'm so happy my kids are going into this profession, because the world is your oyster and in-house attorneys are very, very important, and it's a wonderful opportunity and practice area, and the State Bar appreciates you just like all of our other sections and all of our other members.
Thank you, Sarah.
Next question, and Sarah, you'll lead us off on this. Multiple members have submitted questions about the Texas Supreme Court's decision in January to end our state's reliance on the American Bar Association to accredit law schools. And so one member asks, what impact, if any, do you anticipate that this change will have on our profession?
So, having practiced for over 30 years, I have had the opportunity to see how different, I'm not going to get political, but to say how different leaders have made decisions that could impact Texas lawyers. With this particular decision, looking at the national and state politics, I am very aware of concerns that other entities have about our State Bar of Texas. The Supreme Court of Texas has made a decision regarding the ABA accreditation. And in that light, I think that that is a purview that the Supreme Court is dealing with, and the effect that it will have on us, my hope is that it will be minimal. When I've talked with the law students, when I've talked with the deans of the law school and professors, we've had some discussions about what this means. Will a Texas law degree be the same as another from another state? If someone's coming in from a different state, will they be able to practice law in Texas? And this is very early on, and so I can't have all the answers right now, but my impression is that when the State Bar comes together, when we unite and when our voices are heard, then we are a very strong constituency. And sitting at the table right now talking to you, I do not think that this is going to have an impact. My hope is that we're going to get some more information as to what the end result is going to be. But at this point, I think a decision has been made, and the list of law schools that are being recognized by the Texas Supreme Court, last I looked, are all ABA accredited. So I'm not sure that there's that big of a disconnect at this point. So my hope is that there will not be a change, and then we are all voters, and we elect our Texas Supreme Court, so that accountability is there if it does start to hurt our profession.
Thank you, Sarah. Ray?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, you bet. The Supreme Court decision, Texas Supreme Court decision in January to end the state's reliance on the American Bar Association to accredit law schools. What impact, if any, do you anticipate that change will have on our legal profession?
Well, I'm a born and raised Texan. In my entire life has been in Texas. And in Texas, we are self-reliant, we are self-determiners, and anything that we can do to bring back control to Texas, I would be in favor of. As a practical matter, we have two kinds of bar associations. We have those that are mandatory or obligatory, and we have those that are voluntary. The ABA is a voluntary bar association, and although voluntary bar associations have their benefits for sure, one of the potential problems that can arise is that the association can become political and have certain ideology, and either way, with both ends of the political spectrum. And that is a voluntary bar association's right to do so. The Texas State Bar is a unified bar, an obligatory bar, and that means that we must stay within our lane in terms of avoiding anything that is political or ideological. Our guardrails are the State Bar is a creation of the Texas legislature, and so our guardrails are the State Bar Act, the constitutional constraints of Keller, McDonald, and Boudreaux, and we are under the administrative control of the Texas Supreme Court. And so we operate within that. I am not fearful at all of this decision because it brings the control back to Texas. And so as leaders of a shared profession, I think we can all ensure that the law schools that are accredited are the ones that are going to be producing the lawyers of the highest caliber and of the highest professional standards.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Ray, this question starts with you. If you believe that more can be done to encourage attorneys to do pro bono work, identify one or two ideas that you have.
So I can tell all the Texas attorneys that some of whom may be wondering, why on earth are Sarah and I doing this? Why are we willing to campaign and to serve, if elected, for a 3-year term, or sometimes I call it a 3-year sentence. But and it's because this is a noble profession, and it's more than chasing money. When we chase money, if that's what our goal is, it's never going to be enough. This is something that, when we work for something larger than ourselves, when we serve others, there is a lot of personal satisfaction that comes from that, a lot of personal joy, and that is why I have continued to serve since I was a very young lawyer in various leadership capacities. Some of the most rewarding service is doing pro bono work. The legal aid organizations are doing a tremendous job with the very limited resources they have, but it's not enough. Everything that we're doing, the State Bar is doing, and even the creation of the Texas Access to Justice Commission, despite all of that, we're only addressing, it's believed, about 10% of the need. That means that there's another 90% out there that still need service. And so I don't believe that we have too many lawyers, because if we did, then that 90% need would be addressed. But I do think that young lawyers, particularly those that are in law firms, with the support of their supervisors and their mentors and their partners, should spend a day at the small claims court, at a municipal court, at a justice of the peace court, and help out those folks and get real trial experience, get real courtroom experience, and at the same time, they're doing good.
Thank you. Sarah?
So in order to engage and I guess inspire all attorneys to take on something, we have found by today's forum that by offering some continuing legal education, some CLE hours, that is a good incentive. I know that with the work we did at the family law section of the State Bar, we incentivized increasing access to justice for our attorneys and our section members by coordinating with the legal aid providers that we would bring free CLE and practical resources to attorneys who agreed, and they would get their CLE that day, and they would agree to take two pro bono cases. And that is something that in our program, we called it the Family Law Roadshow, but we went across the state to what were perceived as underserved areas. We gave CLE, volunteers came in to present the courses, but then the lawyers who benefited from that then in turn worked with their legal aid providers and did those courses. What I have found is once you form that relationship with the legal aid attorneys, then when a case comes in need and there's not the attorney in-house in the legal aid providers to do that, you've got that personal relationship, and then you can, they usually get called on to take a case. The other thing that I know that works in our small communities is sometimes the judges recognize the need from the bench, and we're getting enlisted real time to do pro bono services, and the benefit is tantamount in the sense that the judge is seeing you give your time and your service, and that helps form that relationship and that bond between you and the judge because the judge knows they can trust you to do a good job. For our young lawyers, and I know this from what our law schools are doing, the clinic work is phenomenal, and I hope that the law schools will continue to expand upon that because that's a wonderful opportunity. But what I like about that is the law students that are in the clinics need attorneys to mentor them, and that's a wonderful opportunity where the law schools then can partner with the local bar association to bring in mentor attorneys. And then when the clinic experience is over, or if law students are not being involved in the clinic, then we've got a pool of mentors and available attorneys that perhaps will be inspired to take those law students into do pro bono work. But I can say that access to justice is very, very important. I feel that all of us who are practicing law and have those clients that come in, we are making the decision to help people, and I think incentivizing is the quickest way to do it, and it's demonstrated today. But I think the lawyers need to be commended for the work that we're doing, and just I think keep talking about it because the legal aid providers are there. The bodies are what we need to fill those shoes to help out in that aspect. And then the final thing is with technology, the ability of Zoom hearings, Zoom meetings for clients. That's something that works really, really well, where we can sit in an office in Corsicana and talk with somebody that's out in the West Texas area or East Texas area, which is what we're doing. And so I think we just continue to utilize our technology to help bridge that gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Next question, and we'll begin with Sarah, and it's a two-parter. The first part of it is, hey, when it's my turn, I'm going to jam as much. Do you think it's appropriate to require CLE for emeritus bar members, especially those who have always been in good standing? And then the second part is, can we provide more lower-priced CLEs for our membership?
So the answer to both is yes and yes. But I can say this looking at it through the eyes of my father. So my dad is a 60-year lawyer, and he still is an active, attorney in the State Bar of Texas. So it is important, especially for the lawyers who are engaged in the practice of law, that they continue to understand what the legislative updates are, what the new case law updates are, and with this emerging technology, see how we're utilizing technology into our cases. That is something that I think is very, very important. Now, how that service is delivered to our emeritus lawyers and what the price of that is, I think that's where we have some discretion. I know with my dad, we had the silver CLE or whatever it was, where we were able to package really good quality courses that he was able to watch through the internet to get the CLE, to stay abreast of whatever topics that he was wanting, but he paid a much reduced price. I know through the Flash CLE department, we're able to bundle packages to present to lawyers, and if we bring more than one emeritus lawyer together, then we're helping that community aspect. So we're bringing lawyers that might not be as engaged in their law firms or coming even to a regular bar meeting, but we could have a CLE where we're benefiting and bridging that gap. But we already provide, there are avenues for free CLE, which I know that my dad and I exercise on a regular basis. They're provided monthly on the Texas Bar CLE website. There are scholarships that are available. So anybody who needs CLE credit has the ability to apply for CLE, and I know that our CLE department and the sections are very generous in providing those scholarships. So I think it's important that as practicing attorneys, no matter how that shows up, that we all are held to the same standards for our continuing legal education. But I think just utilizing the ways to have free or reduced price CLE is available, and if it needs to be more, then let's up it, because we need to make sure all of our lawyers are engaged.
Thank you, Sarah. Ray?
Wow, so maybe I need some of that silver CLE. A couple of us do here, but
Speak for yourself.
so interestingly, I discussed this with Luke Souls a couple of months ago, because the litigation section inducted Luke Souls as a Texas legal legend. So I had the privilege of interviewing Luke Souls about his career and about issues involving the bar, and this was one of his issues. And so the issue is for those lawyers, it used to be that emeritus attorneys were not required to have these 15 hours minimum CLE requirement, and at some point that changed. And I know that's a continuing concern for some of our emeritus attorneys. There's two issues. One is the cost of the CLE, and the other is the requirement for the CLE itself. I don't think the cost is really the issue, though, because the cost, as Sarah says, there's so many opportunities for CLE. There's so many different providers, so much of it at low or no cost at all. The sections are doing a phenomenal job of providing quality CLE at little or no cost to their members. I know the litigation section offers free CLE. That's something that we work very hard on. But I think the emeritus are more concerned about the requirement of having to have 15 hours. I mean, they've done a lifetime of legal work, and they just, many of them believe that they shouldn't have to have the same 15 hours as everybody else. They've got to show, all lawyers who are going to be engaging the public need to maintain a level of professional excellence and competence. And I think when you're 70 years old or older, that can probably be done with less than 15 hours. And so we might look at reducing it to 10 or 5, even 5 hours. But there ought to be, I believe, some minimum requirement to ensure that our older lawyers our silver lawyers are maintaining a minimum level of competence. Because especially now with advancing technology, the law is changing. There are rapid changes in the practice of law, and we've got to stay abreast of those in order to protect the public and to protect the public's confidence in our profession. The second part of your question is, should we have lower cost CLE for everyone else? And the answer is, I mean, well, of course, we all as lawyers want, have to pay less, but the CLE, the sections are already doing that. The state bar, in order to keep our dues low, lower than almost every other state, we're about a $50 million budget, half of which is our dues, goes to dues, is raised by dues, and the other half is voluntary services that we ask from the state bar, such as CLE and other fee-based services. And so lawyers have the option, if they don't want the Texas Bar CLE, to get their CLE somewhere else. It's a competitive environment, the CLE is. And so whoever is providing the best CLE at the best price is who's going to win that competition.
Great. Thank you both.
Ray, this question is for you. A large and growing number of our membership lives outside of Texas. How do you plan to engage out-of-state Texas lawyers in the work and the activities of the State Bar of Texas?
Yeah, I was actually surprised to learn that of our 118,000 Texas lawyers, and many of the lawyers who are watching are probably pretty surprised, if not shocked, to know that we have 118,000 lawyers. Roughly 1 in 8 of those, about 10,000 of the lawyers, Texas lawyers, live and work outside of Texas. So it's a very significant percentage of the lawyers in Texas or lawyers who are licensed in Texas who live and work outside. So the question is, what can the State Bar do for them? And certainly we need to recognize that they are there, recognize that they are a part of our family, invite them to the table, make sure that we are identifying their needs and addressing their needs. And so we can do a better job of outreach to our out-of-state and out-of-country lawyers, making sure they have a voice at the same table where we're at.
Thank you. Sarah?
So we have a out-of-state liaison in the State Bar. I believe his name's Rob Addy, and I had an opportunity to talk with him about this. They have conducted a survey to their membership and asked their membership, our out-of-state lawyers, what they wanted. Engagement and CLE were primarily what the members were asking for. So to address the engagement, requiring all of us to come together to a CLE is always the best way to do that. But that is not practical, especially when you live far away. So making sure that the quality CLEs that we have continue to be available for web broadcasts or replay is very, very important. But engaging the membership, I think, is a key tenet to what we are trying to do and what my goal is to be, once elected president-elect of the State Bar. And that's to make sure that when the lawyers want to be a part of a committee, when the out-of-state lawyer has a desire to engage in the State Bar of Texas, to understand that that avenue is open. The out-of-state lawyers are a significant portion of our membership, and the hope is that when they finish their commitment out of state, that they will return to Texas and come practice in Texas with us. But the fact that their zip code is different than ours doesn't change the benefits that the lawyers are receiving. And so I think it goes back to our members that are in our State Bar to make sure that they understand that there are travel perks that are available. We do have this quality CLE, and then our sections offer CLE through our website that is obviously very easily available for our out-of-state lawyers. So I think probably the best thing I can say to keep them engaged is to have them, after they pay their annual dues, to go a little bit farther and look in our sections, because I have found that several of our sections have CLEs out of state, and that would be a wonderful opportunity where Texas lawyers could meet with our other Texas lawyers who happen to live somewhere different. And those continuing legal education courses that are going out of state need to partner with our membership department and make sure a blast email goes out or an invitation is made so that the lawyers in the area can come be a part of us, because engagement happens when we do that on a one-on-one basis, and helping to facilitate that in creative ways is what we are trying to do.
Thank you, Sarah.
Here's a question that was just handed to me that came in from one of our viewers. And let me note and thank all those who are viewing. It is a record number of Texas attorneys who are viewing today's forum by a substantial margin. The question from the viewer is, and we'll start with Sarah, should minimum mental health training be required of attorneys practicing in criminal defense work?
So this is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I'll just kind of, if I can have just a minute. So as a family law practitioner, one of the things that I had the opportunity to do is I decided to get trained in collaborative law. I am already hearing the collective sigh from all of the attorneys in my area as I say collaborative law. But what I learned that a component of our legal cases is to have a mental health professional that is a part of the legal team. I have a role as a legal professional. The mental health professional role has a role as a mental health professional. I think what gets me a little concerned is to require an attorney to take on a specialty for which we are not trained. So to get a little bit of exposure to mental health resources is absolutely important. How we do that, that becomes the question. We could talk with our law schools, and I do know that there are wellness classes, but what I think is very, very important is for criminal defense lawyers, for family lawyers, for any lawyer that's dealing with litigation, and for our probate and estate planning lawyers, there is an emotional component to the practice of law. When we as attorneys recognize that that emotional component is going to affect how our clients show up, how we deal with our clients, their ability to testify, their ability to make healthy decisions real time, then all of a sudden we are genius attorneys because we have recognized that there is a client's need. I will say that making sure that we are aware and have some exposure to mental health illnesses, number one, makes us better. And then I have found personally over my walk that as I engage in mental health resources, when I talk with my mental health expert, when I've had the opportunity to get my training from my LPCs that I use all the time in my cases, I'm becoming a better person because maybe I didn't sign up for that counseling. Maybe I didn't recognize that I was suffering from depression. Maybe I didn't realize that I was abusing substances. But all of a sudden, by having that awareness, then it makes me present as a better lawyer, more aware, and it helps our clients. But I think the exposure to it is necessary. I think the benefit will help our clients, but I think ultimately it ends up helping us as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Ray?
So I want to repeat the question so that I can be certain to respond directly, and that is, should mental health training be required of attorneys practicing criminal defense? Did I get that
That's
generally right? Okay.
You did.
The short answer is no. I don't think mental health training should be required of attorneys who are practicing criminal defense. My answer for that is based upon I don't think we need the state bar sort of putting additional requirements on Texas lawyers. We have enough requirements, and we need to meet the requirements that we have. Now, having said that, do I think mental health training would be helpful to Texas attorneys, maybe those who are practicing criminal defense? Well, absolutely. But that's where the sections come in. The criminal section, the criminal law section is one of our strongest sections. And the criminal law section can provide that sort of mental health training for lawyers in the criminal defense arena. And it should be voluntary. Those lawyers who want to take advantage of that CLE, of that training, should absolutely do so. And I would certainly encourage it. But I don't think it should be another requirement, another regulation, another come from the top telling us what to do.
Thank you both.
Ray, this question's for you. One of our members asked, what are you passionate about that you want to build? And a related question regarding that is, what are the 2 or 3 concrete initiatives that you would implement, and how would you measure success?
Wow, I don't know if I'm going to remember all of that. So first of all, let's talk about what I'm passionate about, other than my family. With respect to the state bar, I just, I want attorneys to understand and to know, especially the young ones, that this is a noble profession, and those of us that are, a few of us I think that are in it, just for the money, and we're chasing the almighty dollar. And we're dealing with burnout, we're dealing with dissatisfaction. There is there is so much more to our profession, and there's so much satisfaction and joy that can be obtained from this profession that we share. We've got to rediscover that. We're talking about attorney wellness a lot, and it's very personal to me because I've had 11 of my colleagues that I can count who have taken their life. 2 of whom are very close friends, were close friends of mine. One was in law school with me, and I was charged with the responsibility of winding up their practices, and one of them their estates. And so I've seen firsthand, up front and close, the impact that these kinds of tragedies have on families and on practices and on the clients that stay behind. And so addressing the root causes of attorney burnout, of dissatisfaction, of depression is something that's very important to me. And it's something that I know that working with others, we can do a better job tackling and addressing. The other thing that I'm very passionate about is the future of our profession. And the future of our profession is outreach to our younger lawyers and even beyond into the law schools and into the colleges and into the high schools, and getting people excited about the legal profession, about a legal career, and creating sustainable pathways and pipelines that make the opportunity available to everyone. There is still a lot of demand. This is like supply and demand. We have a lot of demand for legal services that are not being met, but we don't have the supply. So we have got to empower lawyers and train lawyers and excite lawyers to fill the demand that is out there. And we can do that by continuing to build, as I have in the various leadership positions that I have had, trial academies, skills development, mentorship, and other ways of supporting our young lawyers to help them become our future leaders.
Thank you, Ray. Sarah?
So I am passionate about Texas lawyers. I believe in our profession, and I know that when Texas lawyers show up and get involved, that the justice will be served and our state and our country will persevere. I can say that making sure that Texas lawyers have the skills, the tools, and the resources they need to be effective is most important. But part of that competence deals with lawyers understanding and being honest with ourselves that this is a stressful profession. This is a hard way, as my dad says, a hard way to make an easy living. But the part of being a lawyer requires us to show up, and the premise of that is being a resilient lawyer. Lawyers who are taking care of their mental health, lawyers who are aware of the stresses that they are facing, and they're taking the time to show up, to be mindful, to be present, to be engaged. As long as lawyers are taking care of themselves, and I'm very passionate about that, then we are able to represent our clients effectively and to make sure that the jobs and the responsibilities that we have are being fulfilled. What I want to do is I want to make sure that every Texas lawyer knows that the State Bar is available for them. We have tremendous resources. We have the ability to help someone start a practice, to support you in the middle of the practice if you're going to wind down your practice. We have resources that are available for that. I want to support lawyers across the generational spectrum. So our new lawyers coming into the profession, just like my children, for the lawyers that are in the middle, that are facing that transition from raising your families to being the empty nesters to then caring for your parents. That's a very stressful time to have to also practice law. And then also our senior lawyers, as they have all this institutional knowledge, instead of just letting it end, to then in a very healthy, supportive way, allow their practice to be transitioned, hopefully to a new lawyer. That would be awesome. And then also to make sure that all of the actions that the State Bar is doing, all of the wonderful tools that we have, the resources that are available, that it is relevant to lawyers' day-to-day practice, no matter what your practice is, and that it is easy to find and easy to access.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you both. We're down to about 5.5 minutes. So on this last question, I'm going to hold you to our time limit. And I found it to be the most uncomfortable question when I was asked this question 3 years ago, but it's important. And I want you to include in it, if you'd like, any final comments. And we'll go with 2 minutes on this. First one, Sarah, what makes you different from Ray? For example, what substantive policy differences distinguish you, but what makes you different? And then any final comments you'd like as well.
So I think the obvious elephant in the room is I am a woman. I am a woman at the table, and I bring with that a lot of hopes, dreams, and desires. I'm standing on the shoulders of the women who went before me, and I am reaching my hands down to the women that come behind me. And that is very, very important to me. I'm very passionate about that. And I think that is probably the biggest difference that I've identified. I practice law in a small community. I have a general practice. I am not board certified. I have spent my entire career working on all different types of legal matters that have impacted and affected my community. That is a tenet that Steve and I have brought to our community when we decided to open our firm in Corsicana. I believe that Ray and I both care deeply about this profession. We've had the opportunity to travel the state and oftentimes have been together. And I'm happy to report to both of you gentlemen that I have a new friend. And so I know that we had talked about we needed to make sure that we kept this civil. And in addition to being civil, I have a friend. But in my last few seconds, if I can take a point of privilege.
10 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you to my husband, Steve. Thank you to my law firm. Thank you to the attorneys and judges in my community that have allowed me the opportunity to go statewide, to bring my message to Texas attorneys, and to be a part of the state bar candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Sarah. Ray, same question. What makes you different from Sarah?
Well, I think there's really two things. One is that I don't come from a family of lawyers. I'm a first to rise, as TYLA calls it. I was raised by a single mom who struggled to make ends meet, and by two older sisters in a little town called Presidio. And that background gave me a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance, a lot of hunger to advance and to do well. And you know, my mom taught me so many things, one of which is her example of service. Even though she made very little, she always made time to serve. She taught me that to whom much is given, much is expected. She told me if I want to be successful, surround myself with good people and actually make sure they're women. And one of the reasons I've been so successful, I think, is precisely because of that, beginning with surrounding myself with my beautiful wife, Sandra, who is the rock of our family. But in addition to that, I think the other thing that is different is the body of work that I have had serving this profession. As president of the Texas Young Lawyers Association, serving on the State Bar Board, serving on the Texas Access to Justice Commission, serving on the Supreme Court Grievance Advisory Committee, where we look at systemic issues involving the grievance system, serving on the National Board of the American Board of Trial Advocates, and this year serving as your chair of the litigation section, one of the largest sections of the State Bar. I think when you combine all of that body of work, that experience, the relationships I have on a national, state, and local level, I think can be of great use to helping this bar move forward into the future. And I look forward to serving as your president if you'll give me that chance.
Thank you, Ray.
Well, we appreciate and thank you both for participating in this forum. It's been very informative, and we appreciate your responses. Voting in the State Bar of Texas and the Young Lawyers Association elections, as you both know, starts tomorrow, April 1st, and it ends at 5 p.m. Central Time, April 30th. Attorneys can vote by electronic ballot, and you can find more information at texasbar.com/elections. For those that are watching, I'd also like to add that you can, this State Bar forum is a 1-hour CLE credit. and the State Bar will be reporting your attendance for all viewers. If you'd like to self-report with the MCLE department, you can report your attendance using the course numbers that will be emailed to you after the forum concludes.
Don't miss this chance to exercise your right to vote and send a message that Texas lawyers value our system of self-governance. We so appreciate the time you've given us today. Ray and Sarah, we appreciate the time you've given us, and we wish all of you a good afternoon.